you.
Okay, so in 3, 2.
Good afternoon. This is Kathleen Causey, Chair of the Board of Education of Baltimore County's Legislative and Government Relations Committee. I now call to order our meeting for Thursday, April 7th, 2022. In accordance with Board Policy 8311, the chair of a committee, at their discretion and after consultation with the staff liaison, may convene an in-person committee meeting. Otherwise, all committee meetings will be held electronically. Today's meeting is being held virtually and broadcast through Microsoft Teams. In order to conduct this meeting efficiently, all voting items this afternoon will be done by a roll call vote. Board committee members will say their names before making and seconding a motion, as well as when requesting discussion on an agenda item. Ms. Rosenberg, would you please call the roll to determine the presence of a quorum of the committee?
Ms. Rowe.
Present.
Dr. Hager. Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Ms. Causey.
Present. Ms. Rosenberg, could you please call the roll of any other board members that may be attending this committee meeting today?
Mr. Bazemore.
Present.
And Mr. Corns.
Okay, thank you for naming the staff that are available. So today we are going to have an update on the legislative session. The last day of the session, sine die, is Monday, April 11th. So as we know, there's a lot of activity that happens day to day and things can change rapidly. So we're going to do that, and then board members can discuss any particular items that they want. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is information items, legislative updates, and for that we call on Mr. Bazemore.
I'm sorry,
Good
Madam
afternoon.
Chair. I believe you skipped the necessary reading in the beginning. Did you read the thing that we say in the beginning, or did I miss it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So there we go. We'll go back to the first item on the agenda, Mr. Bazemore.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Causey. As you just said, Monday, this upcoming Monday, April 11th, is sign and die, the last day of the state legislature this year. They actually will be conducting business up to 12 midnight Monday. So bills will be passed or not up until midnight of Monday, April 11th. There's a lot of, it's very busy down there right now. As Christian knows, he's down there as a page. There's a lot of people scrambling to get their bills across at the last minute. So we'll keep monitoring all of the bills that we're interested in and see whether they, make it into law or not. The budget update is really good. It's a really good picture that we're seeing. We want to thank Governor Hogan in his supplemental budget, which was $480 million additional funding for education. So that was big. The blueprint is being funded fully. And the state of Maryland, as was reported out by the governor and the state legislature, we have a $7.5 billion state surplus right now. And so for us in education, that's a good thing, because as you know, the last few years we've been trying to get our capital funding from the state, and so we can move forward with a lot of our capital projects. So that funding is coming forth. We have our county share from the county government side, the county executive and the county council. So we'll be able to get back on track with all of our capital projects and things that we're doing, and get the needed funding for a lot of things that we'll be doing in the next couple of years. So that's really good. That's a good report, and that wasn't being anticipated actually not too long ago. There was a dire economic forecast, but the federal funding that we've been getting the last couple of years have really helped to stabilize Maryland, and we're able to fund our education priorities. So that's my update. And again, we'll continue to monitor all of these bills right up to 12 midnight Monday.
Okay, thank you. And also, I wanted to give brief comments about Maryland Association of Boards of Education, MABE, to which all 24 school districts in Maryland belong. They have a legislative committee that does a tremendous amount of work, headed by board members from around the state, and also Mr. John Willems, who is the attorney for MABE that addresses all of these issues. So we're very grateful for their help. And they had a legislative committee meeting Monday, March 28th. That was the latest one. And they also went through specific bills, but also the potential, and we're glad that it's realized, for the increases in the operating and capital funding for school districts, because that is going to be very important. And the public documents related to that meeting will be posted to board docs after this meeting is concluded. And then I had on the agenda, Mr. Bazemore, that you were going to review or specific, provide an update on current bills.
Okay. Okay, we'll start off on your agenda. We'll start off with Senate Bill 414. And I just wanted to weigh into that. Those MABE meetings that Chairwoman Causey and I attend are really invaluable to the work that, I'm sorry, Christian, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Thomas, did you have a question?
I was just saying, do you have to verbally recognize for the record that Dr. Hager is here?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Hager?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us, and that'll be noted in the minutes. Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Bazemore?
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to just give a quick plug and follow up on Chairwoman Causey's comments about MABE. We attend those meetings, and it's invaluable, the information that we get. And our colleagues from around the state attend that meeting. And I just want to give a plug to the chairwoman also, because she's very engaged in those meetings and asked some really pertinent questions at our last meeting on the 28th about some of the bills and priorities that we're setting. So I feel like we're there. You know, Baltimore County is there. We're engaged, and it helps us to come home and do our work, you know, locally. So we'll continue to go to those meetings that MABE is that MABE has, and they're great. They're really great. So we pulled out a few bills that we've been tracking and following this year that meant a lot to us here locally in Baltimore County Public Schools. The first one is Senate Bill 414 on your agenda. If you remember, this is the bill that would have the county executive appoint a 13th member to the Baltimore County School Board, increasing. Well, we have a 12-member board now. This legislation would increase it to 13. The bill also states that it would require that when you elect the chair of the board, that you would have a majority vote of the members that are serving at that time, instead of reaching the threshold of 7. So this bill went through the Senate, the Baltimore County Senate delegation. It crossed over to the House. The Baltimore County House delegation passed this bill with amendments. What they voted on, and Ms. Causey, I think you attended the Education Subcommittee meeting and spoke about this bill as well.
Yes, I did. I signed
right.
up as an individual member and gave comments and was asked questions.
Exactly. Okay, great. And so what the House did was say, okay, we agree with the county executive being able to appoint a member. Right now, the governor appoints all 4. And so what they said was that the governor would appoint 3, the county executive would appoint 1. But what they didn't want to see was that the board be increased to 13. They felt like most jurisdictions around the state, this is their commentary, most jurisdictions around the state are moving downwards to around 7, 9, board members. And so and based on research, apparently that's you don't want to be too large because then you become dysfunctional. So they agreed, well, we're not going to lower it, but we'll just keep it the same and give the county executive the right to appoint. So that was an amendment. And so what happens is it goes back to the Senate once the House amended it. And the Senate took this bill up. And actually what they did was take portions of this bill, SB 414, and amend it to House Bill 476. House Bill 476, if you recall, is the bill from Delegate Ebersol and Kathy Forbes that would stagger the terms of the appointed board members. So right now you have SB 414 and 476 commingled. It's on the Senate side. It has to come back to the House, and both chambers have to agree on it. So we're monitoring this bill as we speak. There are a lot of options that can come out of this. We don't know the final form of this bill, but right now they're looking over these amendments, and we'll just have to continue to monitor this for the next couple of days.
Mr. Bazemore, could you clarify for the public and also the committee what is a typical process to resolve differences between the House and the Senate when they pass
Yes, ma'am.
different versions?
Okay, but typically what will happen is when a bill comes back over to the original House and it's amended, that House would then have the choice to accept those amendments or not. And if they do not accept the amendments, then what they do is go to what we call a conference, where a certain amount of members from each side is selected, usually 3 or 4, I think, is selected to serve on a conference committee. The conference committee then meets, and both sides hopefully, come to a compromise and come out with something that everybody can live with, or not. If the conference committee cannot agree on a compromise bill, then the bill doesn't go anywhere. So right now we're waiting to see if those amendments will be accepted, if they're going to have to go to conference, and obviously we only have a couple of days left. So if it happens, it'll happen really quickly.
Okay, thank you. Board members, are there questions on that? Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. I just have a statement. I feel like these bills were intended to be very separate in the original nature of the bills, and so the fact that now they're commingled. I actually watched the Baltimore County Senate delegation meeting when a senator motioned to add this to the House Bill 476, what was stricken out by the House. They do seem to be commingling in a way that I don't think the intent of either bill was. So if we were to if the board wanted to take a position on this, I know we're not going to have another full board meeting to really discuss this, then I would personally kind of be in opposition of the commingling of these two bills, just because at this point it seems to be like a political battle between like who can get what inside of either bill to get what they want to pass.
Thank you for that, Mr. Thomas. I guess, Mr. Bazemore, that might be a good time to review House Bill 476.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and actually, the Vice Chair brings a good point, Madam Chair, because that was my question: is how are bills amended like that? And the answer I was given, I asked the Legislative Committee. They said if a bill is similar in subject matter, like this is the school board, then that commonality there allows you to take a separate bill and amend it. But if a bill are totally separate, one is for cars and one is for motorcycles, I'm just using that as an example, you cannot you can't amend those because they're totally separate. So that was a good observation and question, Vice Chair Thomas. So I had asked the same question. So that's how they got coupled, because there were Baltimore County Public School Board bills, and so therefore the senator could amend them that way.
So when I see on the legislative website, mga.leg.maryland.gov, that House Bill 476 completed third reading, and then what it indicates is up next on the timeline that it has is a review in the original chamber.
Correct.
there any information about when that would happen?
They're reviewing it as we speak. And so if they do accept those amendments, then the bill moves forward. But if they do not, then that's when I think the next step on that bar is a conference. They go to a committee conference.
Okay, and at this point, there's, what is the opportunity, or is there no opportunity for the public to provide input?
I think it's in-house now when you go to these conference committees, and if they want input from the public, then they'll request it. But I don't think it's a standing, that at those conference meetings that the public is able to weigh in, because they've had the hearings and they've got the testimony and everything. And so at this point, they're just going to pretty much get in the room and see if they can come up with a compromise.
Okay, thank you. Board members, are there questions related to House Bill 476 and House Bill 414, since they're now amended together? Ms. Hager, or excuse me, Dr. Hager?
No questions.
Okay, Ms. Rowe?
No, I have no questions.
Okay. Yes, well, I guess my statement as an individual member is that this is well, I think there's a lot of problems with the way that the bills were structured, some of the components that will not be helpful to effective governance for the board, for the school board. Okay, if there's no other questions or statement, Mr. Thomas, did you have your hand? Did you?
Yes, so I was going to look back on my own, but I'll just ask now. So for House Bill 476 and Senate Bill 414, the only part of the original Senate Bill 414 that is now in House Bill 476 is the part about adding the 13th member. So does the amended House Bill 476 that the Baltimore County Senate delegation voted in support of on Monday, does that also include the idea of having the chair and vice chair elected by the majority of the members presiding on the Board of Education as well from the original Senate Bill 414, or is it just the 13th member?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, because
Yeah, I will look into that.
Okay, because I was just curious with what might happen in the conference committee and what kind of components are in the new House Bill 476.
Okay, I'll follow up on that.
And so, following along on the again on the Maryland General Assembly website, when you click into House Bill 476, I'm quickly looking through it. Does that include the amendments? Or not yet, because it's not been agreed to in a conference?
Yeah,
Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. So if you click on the hyperlink next to like the dots, that's the original bill, I believe. But if you go to history, and if you go down to history and you just look through, there are some more hyperlinks that have like letters. Like if you go down to the hyperlink for today, April 7th, 2022, you can see like it says 363422/1, and that's the amendment that was added to the bill. So it's not infused into the original bill, I don't believe, but it's a separate document in the history section. And Mr. Batesmore can correct me if I misspoke.
No, I think that's correct. That's correct.
Okay, so again, for the public, all of these documents are available publicly on the Maryland General Assembly website. And as we mentioned at the beginning of our committee meeting, things are happening very quickly now, and that is the place to get the most updated information. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so looking over, it is, in my personal opinion, concerning that they've increased the number of members so that they could have one appointed by the county executive of Baltimore County, in that larger boards have some systemic issues with them. And when they were discussing it in the hearing, it seemed that having an odd number was a preference of many delegates. They could have also decided to reduce it to 3 appointed members instead of 4, and one of those appointed by the county executive if that's what was important to them. I testified, and that's public, as an individual person, that I don't think that the odd number is a major factor, because there could be ties if someone abstained or someone was absent. But also MABE is opposed, and I read the statement from MABE about having the local government have direct control over the appointing of members of the board, so that there would be sufficient checks and balances. And I'll have that document attached to this meeting afterwards, since I mentioned it. Okay, any other comments before we move on? Okay, Mr. Bazemore.
Yes. Okay, Senate Bill 55, it crossed over, it passed the House and Senate county delegation. So we're monitoring that to see if it gets on the floor and it's actually passed. There wasn't too much controversy about that. And this bill basically is aligning Baltimore County up with all the other local jurisdictions that says that you can hire and retain your own legal counsel. So there wasn't any controversy about that at all.
Yes, and the board voted as a whole board to support that legislation, and that information was communicated by the chair of the board. Okay.
Yep, so that's good. We'll monitor that, and we already spoke on 476. So our next bill is HB 192, student member voting. This passed the Baltimore County House delegation and the Senate delegation, and so that's been approved, and we'll continue to have to monitor this bill, HB 192, which expands the student board member voting rights in Baltimore County, where the student can vote on operating and capital budget. So we'll continue to monitor that bill as well.
Okay, thank you, board members. Questions or comments related to that? Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. I just wanted to state that I testified in support as an individual when it came to the Baltimore County Senate delegation, and I was very ecstatic to see our senators agree with me in supporting this in the delegation. And on Wednesday, I was paging in Annapolis, and I just so happened to be sitting in the Environment, Health, and Educational Affairs Committee when this bill is being discussed. And senators had a few questions about the SMOBs across the state of Maryland, and no one was there who knew the answer. And so I knew the answer, and they invited me up to come speak, and it was a really cool experience to be able to be in the right place at the right time. And I've been tracking this all day because it was heard this morning for second reading, and then Senator Sidnor did motion to special order it until later today. So it is actually being heard again today as special order number 89. So I have the live stream of the general of the Senate floor up right now. Senator Sidnor stated that this reason for special ordering in the Senate delegation on Monday was that he wants to expand the budget training, because this bill was amended in the House to require the student member of the board to have budget training, was to expand the budget training requirement to all members of the Board of Education. And so this is something that I believe, is planning to bring forward today with the special order. However, you don't exactly know what's going to happen with the special order until it happens. So those are some updates that I have from my experience. And after second reading, it goes to third reading, and then if it passes in the Senate, it'll go back to the House.
Thank you for that. Any other board members? Okay. Mr. Bazemore, if you want to review the next one.
Yes, ma'am. HB 136/SB 299, which is the public and non-public schools seizure action plans, the Brindley, known as the Brindley Act. This bill has also passed both chambers and is now being reviewed in the original chamber. MABE supported this bill with amendments. So again, another bill that we'll continue to watch. We have a couple of days left and see if it actually passes the House and moves on for the governor's signature.
Okay, and so if you don't have the answer, that's okay. You could provide it later, but do you know if MABE's amendments were added to this bill?
I spoke to John Willems and they were.
Okay, that is encouraging. Board members, any questions on this? Okay.
Okay, so
We can move forward.
This is the anaphylactic food allergy bill, HB 154, SB 95. This bill did cross over. It's in the Senate and it's in first reading. So it has a ways to go, but again, we'll continue to monitor this bill. Again, MAPE supported this bill as well with amendments.
Okay, and do we know if MABE's amendments were attached to this bill?
I'll have to check on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll check with John.
Board members, any questions? And if you have a question or comment anytime, you can put it in the chat or raise your hand, and or if you don't have access to either of those, just in a gap, chime in. Okay. All right, Mr. Bazemore.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that one. The self-contained special education classroom use of video recording devices, again, crossed over. And it's in the Senate side now, first reading. So this bill also has a little ways to go, and we'll continue to monitor this. Now, this particular bill may oppose the use of video recording devices for these self-contained education classrooms.
Okay, and do they have an opportunity to state their position if they've modified it, given amendments that were made to this bill to start a pilot program next year?
Yes, that I think is in its current form now, Madam Chair. It's a voluntary pilot program if this bill actually passes, where the locals are not mandated, but that they could opt in at their choosing to pilot this in their local jurisdiction. So if the bill passes, it will be a pilot program.
Okay, and board members, are there comments or questions? Okay, can move on to the next one.
And this is the EpiPen bronchodilator bill that had a lot of attention this session, and we've been following this one very closely. And this is HB 384. They had a hearing in the Senate. I don't believe they voted yet. It did cross over. I know they had the hearing. Vice Chair, you may have some information on this, whether they voted on this today. But MABE opposed this bill. The Maryland Nurses Association opposed it. And I think, Madam Chair, you had brought that out at the MABE meeting, inquired about that, about the Nurses Association. And apparently they had issues with non-medical personnel making a decision what a child may need at that time when they're having, a situation, because you could misdiagnose that, give them something thinking it would help with that situation, but it could be the wrong thing to give them. So I think what folks were saying mostly was that if they would want a trained nurse or a trained medical person within these school buildings to make that call, to make that judgment call on what medication to give a child, that was too much of a burden for somebody that was trained, that's the non-medical person. So again, this is in the Senate now. They had the hearing, and we're waiting to see how if it makes it to the floor.
Right, and I do just want to make a comment that every school in Baltimore County Public Schools has a school nurse that is assigned to it. We're very grateful that we've been able to have that program in place for many years. That is a great support and can bring peace of mind to parents that we do have that valuable healthcare professional.
And that's, and Madam Chair, and that was, I think some of the smaller jurisdictions, or, local school systems, I don't know if all of them have nurses. So that's where it kind of got a little tricky. The largest systems, we tend to have the nurses in order to, implement this, but it was the smaller jurisdictions that, really had concerns about non-medical people administering epinephrine, this bronchodilator and epi medication, so.
Right, and board members, are there questions or comments related to this? Okay, and I did just want to point out that MABE did oppose this bill.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And their testimony is available on the Maryland General Assembly website as well. Okay, we can move to the next one.
Okay, our last bill is HB 1255 / Senate Bill 705, and it's the Physical Restraint and Seclusion Limitation Bill. This bill actually passed and is sitting on the governor's desk to be signed by the governor.
Okay, board members, are there questions or comments?
And Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that when bills get to the governor does have the power to sign them and they move into law. He has the power to not sign them. He can just put them in the drawer and not sign it, but it becomes law in 30 days. Or he can veto. He can veto a bill. So we don't, we're not at the finish line yet because the governor has a say in all of this. And so, we'll continue to monitor all of these bills, and even with the vetoes that the governor has at his disposal. Now, even if the governor vetoes, then there's another part to that where the state legislature could override his veto on a particular bill, but I think they would need, and Christian, you may be able to help me out with this. I think it's 3/5 of the state legislature has to override. A supermajority. You need a supermajority of the legislature to override the governor's veto.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering, can you go over just a brief explanation of this bill again, of the bill that was just passed by or is now sent over to the governor? Yeah,
this is the Physical Restraint and Seclusion Limitations Reporting and Training Bill. This bill would limit putting physical restraints on children. It would limit isolating and putting children in secluded rooms who were acting out, having a certain crisis. There's been a lot of attention. There was a pretty public case where the Frederick County school system was in the news, where they was using these physical restraints and seclusion practices, and the federal government came in and looked at what they were doing and said that they weren't doing it correctly. And so there was a lot of things that came down out of that. And so I think this legislation was in response to that, where school system has to look at how, who, and when they use these physical restraints and seclusion techniques. The idea of the bill was to minimize the use of it, and only in very specific situations.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for that explanation. And yes, it is 3/5 is what it is needed for the Senate or the House to combine to override the veto.
Oh, okay, great.
So I'm looking through to see what the last version was with amendments, because I know that there were different amendments that were asked for by different organizations. But it seemed, well, and there's a number of amendments that passed in the Senate. And then some that were rejected. Okay. Board members, any questions or comments on this? I see Dr. Hager. Oh, okay. We'll get to yours. We'll get to the, yes, we'll do a update on other bills that are requested. And then I see you have some questions about a bill that we discussed prior. So when we finish discussing this bill, then we'll go back, okay? I guess one of the things that concern that was expressed with Senate Bill 0705 and the related House bill was the implementation date, which was currently July 1 of 2022, which would give school systems a very compressed time frame to try and modify their practices, modify IEP plans for students. So that would be my question for the update, as if there was any amendment that was included to change the date.
Okay.
Other board members on House Bill 1255, Senate Bill 705? Okay, thank you. And then we'll go to Dr. Hager, who had a question wondering if there were updates on the recess bill, which is House Bill 0573.
House Bill 0573.
Yes.
I'm pulling that one up. This bill did not cross over. HB, that's the School Wellness and Recess Grant Program.
Yes.
It was on the House side, Dr. Hager, and it did not cross over.
Good to know. They've tried for many years to have a recess bill, and so thought this might be the year. So thank you for that update.
Okay. Looks like they made it to second reading, I think, on the House side, but it never crossed over to the Senate.
And so Dr. Hager, I would just say that as a school system, the board and the superintendent have the opportunity to evaluate what we believe is going to help students with health, to keep a safe and healthy learning environment, but also to increase academic outcome and academic achievement. So that is something that this board could take up for our own system. So please keep that in mind. Any other discussion on HB 0573? Okay, board members, are there other House bills or Senate bills that we would like to ask Mr. Bazemore for an update or discuss in general?
I had a question about the small voting bill. I apologize. I was trying to, when we discussed it, I was trying to unmute my my mic and I couldn't get there fast enough.
Certainly, we can go back.
Yeah, sorry, just two questions. One is, are we the only school system that proposed this change this year? Is it just Baltimore County that's kind of being discussed right now?
Mr. Thomas would like to chime in.
Sure. So I don't know of many other school districts, although I do know of one. Baltimore City Public Schools also introduced a voting rights bill for their student member of the board. It began, and I was talking to the senator that introduced it just yesterday. It began with actually making 2 student member of the boards on the Baltimore City Board of Education, and I do believe it included the vote on the capital and operating budget, as well as the vote on a few other things, although I would need to look back at that just to make sure. And yeah, I actually went and I testified in support of that bill as an individual. But it was then reduced down to one student member of the board. And some more voting rights were limited as it went onto the House side. And it was amended in the Senate by the Baltimore City Senate delegation before that. So yes, there is. I know of that happening in Baltimore City, and there was also a bill introduced by Delegate Ludke earlier this session that would increase student member of the board voting rights in every county across the state of Maryland. And that one, I don't believe even made it past first or out of committee. But that bill was a pretty ambitious bill. And there was another bill that was introduced in the Carroll County, but it was about pertaining to the student member of the board. That one didn't increase voting rights. It did limit the role to just having a student member that serves 1 year instead of serving the possibility of serving 2 years if they were to be elected again. So those are 3 bills I know off the top of my head, and I'm sure there are some others that I could find.
Thank you. And did MABE take a stance on this? Does anyone know?
I'm looking through the witness list.
It's our bill, our local Baltimore County bill. They did not. They tend not to take a position on local bills unless they get a formal request from the local school board to weigh in on a local bill.
Thank you. Those are all my questions.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Thomas?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one quick thing. MABE did take a position on the statewide SMOD bill that I talked about earlier, and they were opposed to that bill, and they cited that they wanted to maintain local control over Board of Educations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Mr. Bazemore, I was wondering if you were able to provide an update on what's occurring in the legislative session related to redistricting and the upcoming elections that will include school board members and county council and the gubernatorial election, because there's been a lot of activity around that.
Yes, yeah, it has. It's been a very interesting year. And I think on all 3 levels, on the federal, state, and local level, there's been court cases challenging these redistricting lines. Here locally in Baltimore County, we elect our 7 board members by councilmanic districts. That case was just settled. It was a challenge to the original redistricting map. That's just been settled. And so anyone, the public or anybody who was interested in where those lines are now, they can go on the website, the Board of Elections website, the state board, and look at the map. Because technically, if the line was tweaked in such a way where, prior to the lines, I'm just saying in District 1, and now they redrew the line, you could literally maybe in, Council District 2 now. So in order for people to run in their respective district, they need to go to that map, find out where they are, and you can just put your address in and it'll tell you. And then if you wanted to run for the school board or the county council, you would know what district you were in.
Okay, and currently the deadline for candidates for the Board of Education of Baltimore County or the Baltimore County Council is April 15th. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe it is.
So now that the districts are settled, the public can take a look at that, as you said, on the State Board of Elections website, review the map, and if they have interest, they can now make a decision.
Yes.
Board members, any questions related to that? Okay, and then in the General Assembly, they had created and passed another map based on a court ruling.
Yes, that was.
Is there an update on where that stands?
Yeah, that is, we're waiting for the judge to weigh in on the state maps. That hasn't been settled yet, so that should be coming down shortly because that timeline is getting close, April the 15th for the, deadline to file. So we're waiting on that one. As soon as that come out, we'll all know where those state lines are. The federal has been resolved. The judge weighed in on the congressional lines, and so those have been resolved for anybody that's seeking federal office.
And is there a bill number for the current map that has passed the General Assembly?
I'll have to look that up. I don't have that
Okay.
off the top of my head. I'll look that up and get back to you on that.
Okay, and we can provide that information to the full board.
State map. Okay. So
Because
the county.
I just looked it up, but I don't see it.
Oh, okay. I couldn't remember. So our federal and our local has been settled, and right now we just need our state redistricting map.
Okay, great. Board members, are there other questions or comments related to the legislative session? Okay. Hearing none, we can that finishes our item number 3, update on current bills. And I would ask board members, is there any other business that board members would like to discuss in this committee meeting? Okay, Mr. Bazemore, is there any other business that you believe the committee needs to address today?
No, ma'am, Madam Chair. And again, I just want to bookend this by thanking this committee this year. This was a year like no other in the state legislature, as we all know. It was an election year coming off of COVID. All the rules and guidelines for testimony changed. Our committee had a change in leadership halfway through, but we didn't skip a beat. We hit the ground running. Dr. Hager, Lily, everybody's been engaged. And I feel like we've had a real presence this year with the Vice Chair, Christian Thomas, being in Annapolis, and Madam Chair, you coming down to speak and being engaged in MABE. I just want to commend our committee. I think we're moving in the right direction. And, our voice was heard and it made a difference down there. There was a lot of bills that could have negatively impacted our district, and we were at the table. So I just wanted to thank everybody. It's been great working with everybody. It really has.
Well, I certainly appreciate those comments, and I appreciate you and Ms. Rosenberg and the other staff that I know work in the background to support the work of the committee as the board stays engaged with how much legislation and other agencies in the government can impact the students and the staff and the families here in Baltimore County. Yeah. Then the last item on the agenda, is there any other comments that any other board members would want to make? Okay. All right, so the last item on the agenda is announcements, and the next Legislative and Government Relations Committee is going to be held, and I lost that date. Ms. Rosenberg, if you could.
May 5th.
Is May 5th. And so we will add some additional documents that were discussed here to the board docs of this meeting. And last call for any further business.
I would just be remiss if I didn't thank Ms. Eileen Rosenberg, my right and left arm. Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Hearing none, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Christian.